Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld, and today we're going to take a look at one of my favourite stealth loadouts, the stealth mechanic. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the mechanic, but after playing around with this setup for a while, I found that it's actually pretty good for those times where you want to stay off the minimap. This setup is really good if you like to play the objective hard, and although it's not perfect, it is a great all-round setup for just about every game mode. Stealth loadouts generally work best on objective game modes though, so if you're a fan of TDM, you might want to modify some of the gadgets or attachments in this video to suit the game mode. When it comes to a stealth loadout, the class you probably think of first is the professional, but the problem is they can only use the sniper rifles and they don't really have that many effective gadgets. I mean, sure, it is definitely possible to load up a semi-auto with a one-time sight and a suppressor, but this seriously limits your effective range and it forces you to get into close quarters combat. The reason I think the mechanic is probably the best kit for a stealth playstyle is because they have quite a few useful gadgets and of course the PDWs. The PDWs are the sort of weapon you want to use in close quarters anyway, so they're a great choice for a suppressor because the nerf to muzzle velocity won't drastically affect what they do best. Now, I've mentioned the suppressor a few times already, so what does it do in Hardline and why is it a good choice for PDWs? Well, its primary function is to reduce the sound of a weapon, which basically means that in-game you won't show up on the minimap when you fire your gun. Unlike in BF3, the suppressor doesn't reduce damage, but it does reduce muzzle velocity, which will make it harder to hit targets at long range. In my experience though, the benefits of the suppressor definitely outweigh the drawbacks, especially when you attach it to weapons like the PDWs, which aren't as affected by the penalties. Speaking of PDWs, most mechanic players would probably jump straight for the K10, but my pick would probably be the UMP-45, because even at 600 RPM, it maintains a decent time to kill at all ranges. It does have one of the worst muzzle velocities in the category though, but that being said, it also won't be nerfed by the suppressor anywhere near as much as a gun with a really high muzzle velocity. The UMP makes up for this anyway with a decent accuracy model and a fast reload time of 2.73 seconds empty and 2.25 seconds with a bullet still in the chamber. Probably the only drawback of this gun is the smaller than average capacity of 26 rounds, which shouldn't be a big problem anyway considering this gun fires at half the speed of the K10. Now, as for attachments, well, obviously you won't need a high-powered optic, so just run with a one-time sight for those occasions where you won't be hip-firing. In addition to the suppressor, you'll probably also want to run with the vert grip, and either the laser sight or the extended mags if you're worried about the 26-round capacity. The most important thing to remember though is that you'll want to pair the UMP up with a decent long-range revolver, which pretty much means the 44 Magnum. I'm not a big fan of revolvers, but the 44 does have a guaranteed 2 to 3 shot kill at all ranges, and it is accurate enough to outshoot a sniper rifle if you really need to. Once you've got your weapon set up, as for your other gear, I think the obvious choice for this setup is the satellite phone. This is basically the mobile spawn point of BF Hardline, and it's a really effective tool if you want to consistently harass the flanks of the enemy team. For your other gadget slot, well, you have the choice of the grenade launcher or the armoured insert, depending on whether you want to make vehicles or infantry a priority. As for grenades, well, I'd probably recommend that you give the smoke grenades a try, even though they're probably underpowered these days compared to the ridiculous M67. The most important thing you need to remember about this setup though, is no matter what weapons and gear you're running, the most important part of any stealth loadout is you. If you're not going to play the objective, or if you're going to take pot shots at random long-range targets, you can't really expect to do well with this setup. The UMP will give you a bit more flexibility at range than most other PDWs, but ideally you'll want to be closing the gap to as close to 15 meters as possible before you start firing. This obviously isn't possible all the time, but it's what you should be aiming for, and you'll find that you'll do better overall if you keep this in mind when you're playing. But anyway guys, let me know what you think of this setup, and as always, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Also, check out the links in the description below if you want to see more of my videos, or if you'd like to support my channel on Patreon. And until next time, see you later, and have a good one.